And I'm happy to have you all here, and it's nice to know that there are some usual suspects. I have a few people who missed just a few out of 9. We should give a medal at some point, I think. As well as some new participants. All of this reiterates the importance of our events and the conversations that we have during our forum. The previous 8 events were dedicated to the issues of talent management. All of them are dedicated to talent management, obviously, because this is what I do. But we talked about talent management with regard to millennials at our first year, organizational culture, workforce analytics, exclusive talent management versus inclusive talent management, automation and employment, the fluid workforce, great resignation, and the role of artificial intelligence in managing organizational talent across industries. Today's event will continue this conversation on artificial intelligence by popular demand, by the way. We always listen to your feedback through surveys that you will also have to fill out, by the way, if you want to have lunch. And today's event is actually dedicated to, or actually will continue the conversation on artificial intelligence and is specifically devoted to AI in the workforce and how the organizations across sectors can navigate challenges and embrace opportunities brought about by the rise of AI. We have an exciting program ahead of us, full of useful information and interesting discussions. You'll also get a chance to ask questions, provide valuable insights, we have microphones as you can see, and share knowledge with fellow attendees. So I would say, let's begin. First, I would like to thank our sponsors for their generous support. I would name the organization. I would ask the representatives just to stand up, but please reserve your applause till the end, okay? Never happens, by the way. Penny Mac. Wait. Sage Publications. Meisner Corporation. And the City of Thousand Oaks. And now. Thank you very much. Let's look at the agenda. It's up here, and also it's placed on your tables. Well, we already had a reception and breakfast and networking. There is more food outside. Don't run now because we're starting our program, but know that you can go for seconds if you want to. Then we'll have a brief introduction by the university president and the dean of the School of Management. Then I'll do a short setup, as usual, my short presentation, the academic perspective on AI in workforce. Then we'll have our keynote speech, and then we'll have a short break for everybody to get some refreshments and do whatever they also want to do for 15 minutes, and then we'll start at 10:30 with panel discussion. 11:30, we'll give an opportunity for you to ask questions and hopefully receive answers, and then at 12, we'll end with lunch and more networking. At 1 o'clock, we should clear the room. Does it sound okay to you? What? Okay, just like in a classroom. Does it sound okay to you? Yes. Thank you. So a few housekeeping points, ladies and gentlemen. See, I'm not just a pretty face, I'm also a provider of important information.
Thanks for clarifying.
Absolutely. So if you haven't registered, please do so outside and pick up your name tag. Bathrooms are across the foyer by the stairs over there, and more are located upstairs. Refreshments are available throughout the event, and lunch will be served at noon. Wi-Fi, those of you interested in that information, are available. I don't know if they're on your table, but you can take a picture here and connect to your Wi-Fi. And it's also important because you need Wi-Fi to answer some questions in our survey. There's also on your table, you can find a Connect with Us social media card with a QR code. And lastly, please silence your phones. And I'm just now thinking if I silenced mine. I hope so. Also on your tables, you can find more information about the School of Management and its wonderful programs. We've also prepared an electronic survey. Here we are. I'll show it later again, but if you would like to kind of take a picture of it now, I'll wait a little bit, or scan a QR code. You don't need to answer questions now. Obviously, it would be better if you did this at the end. So please make sure that you fill ours by the end of the event. Fill out your survey. I think that's it in terms of our housekeeping items. Now let me pass the microphone to the interim president of California Lutheran University, Dr. John Nunes.
Good morning. Welcome to campus. We are excited and delighted to have a room of distinguished guests such as yourself in this room. Thank you so much for being here. One of the functions that is most fun at California Lutheran University is the convening function, to bring together people such as yourselves around important topics such as this. Gerhard, thanks for your leadership in so many ways. One of the traits of great leaders is how they are able to mobilize people around them, like you have done with Vlad. And I had to look up the meaning of your name, Vladimir. Does anyone know what his name means? It means to rule the world with greatness. Of course, it's not lost on him that this is the meaning of his name. So it's good to be here with all of you around this important topic. I just have 3 points I'm going to quickly make. Point one, I received an email recently from a sender who forgot to remove the edits to the email. And it began like this: create an email asking the new university president to meet with, I'm not going to tell you, a certain unnamed group. I won't name it to protect the guilty. Congratulations on your recent appointment as president of California Lutheran. We would like a meeting to discuss our objectives, to introduce our council, to discuss the vital role we play in the university's success, to share our insights, to explore potential collaborations, and to congratulate you. I don't know whether to be offended or complimented, but it was a well-organized email. I can't wait. I actually meet with them soon. And should I tell them? What do you think? Yes? That's good. Yeah, very good. What do you think? You're a regent here, Susie Lundeen Smuck. What should I do? You're my boss. What should I do?
Go right ahead.
So many ethical questions raised as we explore this technology. Has anyone heard of the names Dr. John J. Hopfield and or Dr. Jeffrey E. Hinton? Nobel Prize. I knew you do rule the world with greatness, Vlad. And I know that your keynote speaker knows these names. He and I had a conversation about these two Nobel Prize winners. They won on Tuesday. Today is Thursday. They won on Tuesday the Nobel Prize. They shared it in physics because there is no Nobel Prize in technology or computer technology. And what they've done is they've mapped neural pathways in the human brain, and they're finding ways in which those same kind of webs can be replicated in the design of AI. Of course, this should also raise all kinds of questions about intelligence and what does it mean to be human and the meaning of consciousness In fact, Aaron and I had such a good conversation earlier. We've shared numbers, and we're going to get coffee to talk about some of these topics. Quite fascinated about these topics. You are gathering together around a very timely topic. I sat yesterday in the stadium right next door here watching the Division III defending champions, the California Lutheran University Regals soccer team. Thank you, Rachel. As they won again last night, 1-0. And there was an alumnus who sat behind me. His name is Mark, and he works for ADP. I learned some things sitting in the stands. I learned that ADP pays or is involved in the payment of 1 out of every 6 employees in the United States of America. Knowing that I was going to be with you today, I asked him, hey, what about AI? How does it impact your work? He said, in so many ways that we are exploring, but the most immediate way, he suggested, was in their call center. Because in their call center, they have AI monitor all of the calls and then summarize with greater accuracy than the call center representative the content of that call. Who's supervising whom? The ethical questions, again, are raised. The business functions and purposes are many. So congratulations to you for carving out time out of your very busy schedules to come together and convene and examine this most important set of questions. We are honored to have you in our space. Thank you as you rule the world with greatness, Vlad.
Thank you. Thank you, President Nunes. Difficult to follow it, but you have to follow it, Gerhard. I would like to introduce to all of you who don't know him, and for those of you who do, Dean of the School of Management, Professor Gerhard Apfelthaler.
I really don't like our new president. How do you follow that? I think we're going to take a break right now. So I had this elaborate speech prepared, so I don't think there's any use for that after John. I could not resist, of course. I wanted to open with a joke, and so I asked ChatGPT. So here's the best AI and talent management joke from ChatGPT. Why did the AI reject the invisible man from the job? Couldn't see him doing it. And that was the best it could do after like 10 or 12 tries. So, of course, it's not just the workforce that is impacted by the rapid development of artificial intelligence, it's also higher education. It is truly one of those few subjects that keep me up at night. We are impacted by artificial intelligence on the production side, meaning what is the role of a faculty member in the future if knowledge is not only readily available on the web, but it can actually be produced and modified and generated in new ways that are more appealing to students much quicker and much cheaper than faculty members do that. There are questions of academic freedom, of course, for faculty members. There's question of how do we ensure that we mentor students properly, that we stay close to students properly if we let technology take over. And there's of course also the customer side, the students. Students who grow up with artificial intelligence. Students who have different expectations to how we use those tools and what education should be like. So that is clearly something that I think higher education, also at Cal Lutheran, must address. In our fantastic programs, of course, that we have, and we have a few faculty members in the room, if you would just wave so that you're known. So these are our wonderful people. Some of our wonderful people at the School of Management. I want to highlight John Garcia, who is actually Mr. AI at the School of Management, who is at the forefront of many of the things. So if you're interested in what we're doing, please seek out John and talk to him. We have tried already to adapt, of course, but at the moment we're mostly using tools that artificial intelligence provides to make education better. But we haven't figured out yet, frankly, what the next step for us will be. So we're hoping that the conversation today with people who are in the workforce, who manage the workforce, who develop talent, who seek out talent, are going to help us figure that out. So personally, I look very much forward to today's conversation, to learn from you and hopefully get some joint inspiration from each other. Thank you very much for joining us today, and it is my great pleasure now to reintroduce, what was it, the one who rules the world with an iron fist or whatever it is, Dr. Vlad Weiman, who is not only a wonderful faculty colleague, but is also a dear friend who I've known for many, many years. We kept following each other around the world. Back when I was in Austria at a university, I hired Vlad. He came to Austria and joined the faculty there. He came straight from Canada at the time, but had done a PhD in Switzerland. Then he moved on to Iceland. I, on and off, followed him to Iceland. Then I moved to California. Then I hired Vlad again, and he moved from Iceland to California. So, but now we're kind of stuck here, right? We truly love it here. We find it inspirational. We want to provide great education through our undergrad and graduate programs. He does more than just educate. He does more than just put this forum on every year. Vlad is one of the top researchers in his field. He's one of the most cited scholars in talent management. He practically has created that field, and in fact, once he told me he received an email that was addressed to the father of talent management. So let me introduce to you again Dr. Vlad Weiman with his academic keynote.
Well, I see people starting to leave. No. All right. So, excuse me. We all know that AI is transforming our lives in workplaces, and we can see it in management in particular, and talent management too, when we make decisions who to promote, who to advance into our developmental pools, who to advance to leadership and management. And AI-powered tools right now are used to automate processes, enhance decision-making, and customize employee experience. And that's the essence of what AI can do for the workforce in general, right? Also just in general. Oops. It's also like, where am I? Hold on, just a second. Here we go. 1 second. Technical problems. Today, we'll mostly talk about Gen AI, generative artificial intelligence. And by definition, if you look at the definition, generative AI can be referred to as data-trained technology using prompts to create content. Rather simple to understand, right? And of course, we've seen and we've experienced rapid adoption and advancement in the past 2 years. It's October now, right? ChatGPT was released 2 years ago, this month, or actually even in November, I think, right? November. So it's almost 2 years, just 2 years. It has already changed our world. Research shows, listen to this, according to McKinsey, due to Gen AI, 50% of today's business activities could be automated 10 years earlier than previously anticipated. And of course, when it comes to workforce, it's going to affect hours we work, the tasks we perform, and responsibilities for workers across sectors, across professions, and of course, across wage rates. Let me give you some interesting facts. I wish I brought my glasses. I'm getting old. AI beats humans on some tasks, but not all. Apparently, AI has surpassed human performance on several benchmarks, including some in image classification, AI is better, visual reasoning, and English understanding. However, AI trails behind on more complex tasks, like competition-level mathematics, visual common sense reasoning, and planning. Wouldn't you know, huh? Second fact, Gen AI investment has skyrocketed. Funding for generative AI surged nearly octupling, 8 times, from 2022 to 2024 in 2 years, reaching $25.2 billion. Major players in this space include OpenAI, of course, and then companies I've never heard of. Anthropic, sounds familiar to some. Hugging Face, honestly, it's the name of the company, Hugging Face. And Inflection, who reported substantial fundraising rounds. Number 3 fact, AI makes workers more productive and leads to higher quality work. And I believe that our keynote speaker will provide some information in this regard with numbers, which are staggering. Next one, the last one here, is people across the globe are more cognizant of AI's potential impact and more nervous. When it comes to workforce, people are nervous. I'll mention this in my short speech, and then our keynote speaker will also address that. The proportion of those who think AI will dramatically affect their lives in the next 3 to 5 years has increased from 60 to 66% in just 1 year. 52% express nervousness toward AI products and services, which is a 13 percentage point increase from 2 years ago. In the US, data suggests that 52% of Americans report feeling more concerned than excited about AI, rising from 37% just 2 years ago. 37 in 2022 to 52% in this year. So something to think about definitely. AI, speaking of OpenAI, they say that 80% of today's workers will be affected. They say could be affected, now they're more sure that will be affected. It doesn't mean that 80% will be displaced, lose their jobs, or anything like that, but their jobs will be affected one way or another. Obviously, companies need to pay more attention to adopting AI with intention, not just to follow the trend. Make sure that they navigate changing landscape of work meaningfully and thoughtfully, and of course, making talent their competitive advantage. It's not the technology that at the end makes you more competitive. It's the talent that can work with that technology. Today, we'll talk about applications, success stories, and challenges that organizations face using artificial intelligence. We'll also provide examples from different industries, how AI is used or can be used. And more importantly, we'll try to address this question: what should be our priorities when it comes to artificial intelligence and the workforce? I would like to mention these 2 priorities, ladies and gentlemen: upskilling and reskilling, as well as change management. I'll be brief. The first one, upskilling and reskilling. There's always a growing need for digital literacy and advanced technical skills. However, and our keynote speaker will also, no pressure, Aaron, will also address that. Even when you hire purely technical staff, you still need to make sure, and now more than ever before, that they possess different types of skills that you would previously ask for, such as communication skills, critical thinking skills, creativity, imagination. And obviously, you need to invest in continuous learning and development to make sure that people develop those skills. Here are some strategies that could work in your company. Try to create tailored training programs. And by the way, AI can help you with that. Tailored training programs for different levels of expertise of your employees. Utilize online platforms and in-house training. Also encourage mentorship and knowledge sharing. Make sure that people who are in the topic, who are in the know, mentor your other employees. When it comes to generative AI, remember prompt generation, right? When it comes to generative AI, capabilities need to be developed across your organization. When I talk to executives, I hear, well, our AI resides in our IT department, or it resides in our finance department. No. Across your organization. Across your organization. Throughout the entire enterprise. And here are the skills that employees must adopt in order to be successful working and understanding generative AI. Prompt writing, some people call it prompt engineering, which I hate. As a former engineer myself, it's not engineering, it's prompt generating, number one. Contextualization, understanding the context in which you are working and in which you need to actually place your prompt and, related things, and adopt data-driven decision making. Who is making decision, by the way? It's another question. Who is the main agent in decision making? Something to think about. Is it you or is it your tool? I have the answer that I would like to see, but we'll discuss that later. In general, as generative AI reshapes roles, employees will need strong cognitive skills. Those are kind of, I would say this is a checklist that you need to follow in order to develop and retain your best employees with your company. And then, of course, before that, you need to attract them. Strong cognitive skills, strategic thinking skills, and also, again, those soft skills that we mention every time. Social and emotional skills to handle more complex tasks that complement AI. The second priority is change management. It comes from research of my colleagues as that from that of my own. People fear AI on a large scale. They fear losing a job. They mistrust the technology. They're afraid to become obsolete in terms of their skills, knowledge, and expertise. We are resistant to change as human beings, no matter what that change is. So as a leader, as a manager, you need to make sure that you emphasize the importance of clear communication and transparency. Tell people what changes are coming, why, how it's going to affect them. Guide this organizational change through meaningful and thoughtful leadership. Here's what some CEOs say. Look, first of all, before I give you some quotes, many CEOs of large companies that deal with AI on a big scale, they say changing and adapting technology is an easy part. The most difficult part is the human change. Would you agree to that? Always. Again, no matter what change you're talking about. One CEO says, on every dollar of technology, we need to spend 3 to 5 in human beings. And another one says, the purpose is not generative AI as a technology, really, but it's Gen AI as a tool to help humanity. People are at the center of this, and that change is hard. Think about that when you implement or formulate first, design and implement your AI policy. How do you break through that resistance? There are many different techniques, of course, but I would emphasize again clear communication, trust. Again, that word, trust that you need to have in your company and that company should have in you as as the employees. Give regular updates, be transparent, answer questions, create town hall meetings, talk to people, involve employees in AI integration process, show them that there are definite benefits to using AI in the workplace, and try to mitigate the fears. And that's probably the most difficult part, right? Very briefly, hold on, are we on time? What is the schedule? What does it say?
Right there.
We're good? Jay?
9:35 is the next presenter, just from a time perspective.
Ah, all right, thank you, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we're good on time. Thank you, Jay. I'm not going to go through different applications because Aaron is going to talk more about that. People often ask me, actually, which industry should we use AI in? Should it be used only in high tech, in software development, or you know what? AI can be used anywhere, from healthcare to finance to manufacturing and retail. And I can send you that presentation of mine later on, and you see the different applications in different industries. Like, for example, in healthcare, they're used in predictive analytics for patient care, robot-assisted surgeries, which have been around for a while, and management of patient data and other things. In, let's say, in manufacturing, AI can be used to predict maintenance, to reduce downtime for your machines, automate production lines for efficiency, and many other things. And even in retail, you can, of course, use the inventory management, use AI for inventory management, and also use it to personalize marketing and product recommendations to customers. So, however, no matter, ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize a couple last points. No matter what industry you're in, and I know that right here we have representatives of many industries, again, from manufacturing to public agencies to financial services and others. There are key factors that apply to all of them. Number one, key to success is to successfully implement that human change, which will take more time and more effort than anything else. Number two, you need to identify the right tools. Is it something that you can buy off the shelf, or is it something that you can develop yourself if you have enough expertise in-house? Then you need to ensure integration with existing systems, which is also a big deal. And ensure importance of data quality, security, and privacy. So those four key factors are paramount to successful AI implementation. And when it comes to workforce, there are other three challenges that you need to pay attention to: ethics, ethical concerns, privacy issues, and job displacement issues. When it comes to ethical and privacy concerns, of course, you can establish ethical guidelines and standards for AI use, and some companies have already done that. Implementing data privacy measures and promoting transparency. And when it comes to job displacement, fears of job displacement, you need to emphasize potential for AI to create new jobs and better jobs for existing employees. Emphasize importance of upskilling and reskilling to prepare the workforce for this change. And of course, encourage entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship within the company in innovation, so that people feel like they're valued, they're needed, they're appreciated. Summary. This is the last slide, I promise. AI and machine learning are moving on faster than we can think about them, right? People are already talking about quantum computing, which is much faster. It's supposed to be much faster than anything we've seen before. And this can impact different industries, all industries, I should say, can create new industries, and can even create new business models. We don't know yet. But what is more important which I want to emphasize right now at the end of my short presentation, is that preparing for a future where AI plays a central but not decisive role in the workplace. We need to prepare for that future. As I say, central but not decisive. Why not decisive? Because it's managers, it's people who are making decisions with the help of AI-powered tools, and not the other way around. And we need to remember that. Thank you very much. And now, to present our keynote. Well, by the way, if you have any questions, you can ask me later. To present our keynote speaker, let me introduce Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson is the president of Panelists Associates, a commercial technology firm based in Camarillo. Panelists Associates specializes in software development, cybersecurity, and systems engineering for the defense, aerospace, and intelligence sectors. Aaron holds a BA from UC Santa Barbara and an MBA from UC Riverside. Wrong choice of school. With over 20 years of experience in the technology sector, Aaron is known for his strategic vision and ability to lead teams to success. He has a proven track record of driving business growth, implementing major technology innovations, and delivering high-quality engineering solutions to both government and commercial partners. He has expanded its service, the company's service offerings, and increased its customer base to expand its software products. Aaron is a member of InfraGuard, the partnership between the FBI and the private sector, as well as the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Outside of his professional commitments, Aaron volunteers and supports work with families and children of the autism spectrum with a focus on inclusion and accessibility. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Weiman. Thank you to Cal Lutheran and to... Is everyone able to hear me? All right, thank you. I don't often talk with a microphone, so... you know, I also come to you as a practitioner, as someone who is right there in the field, facing the same challenges, the fears, from a leadership perspective, what I see from our people, and even the existential concerns for our business. Without being cliche, when I say we are in this together, that is very true. And it is, we're sort of witnessing one of the greatest transformations of our lifetime. The closest analogy that I could put is if you were to have done business in 1994, and someone was to say to you, what would business look like in 2000? And you were able to take a snapshot, you would see unbelievable transformations. But if you were to ask someone in 1994 what would that look like, they probably wouldn't have been able to tell you, because so much of that happened during that time. Well, that's what we're seeing here, but I think it's going to be much bigger. That affords tremendous opportunity, does come with risks, but with that, I think there's a lot of learning to do. But I am hopeful in the opportunities that that brings. Okay. So what we're going to talk today is going to sort of be broader and sort of focus in. These are key areas that the group wanted to make sure that we covered. Sorry, I apologize. And we're going to look at culture and engagement, both from a broad view and what we've done as a company. Dr. Weiman talked about upskilling. But the real big focus is going to be on the team and company adoption and fear of the future. Fear is probably the most universal concern that we've had within our team and with every group that I've spoken to. And then lastly, one of the most important things, because we are using these tools and really can't be left out, is the importance of data protection and your IP. And so we'll cover all of those. Our company we're a small business, mostly in the federal contracting space. We have a little over 100 employees. We have been in business for more than 20 years.
We have contracts with the various DoD agencies, Department of Homeland Security, and in the intelligence community. We also have a series of commercial products that we sell both to firms and to the federal government and to international partners. Our team is very widely distributed. We have concentrations here in Southern California. We have a major contract down at Point Mugu, so we have an office in Camarillo. We have our headquarters in Denver, and the rest of our team is in Washington, D.C. But aside from that, we operate in multiple states. So the whole remote work, distributed workforce, bringing people together, that's a big thing. We've also worked and do work both as a subcontractor and a prime contractor with various industry partners such as Northrop Grumman, SAIC, KBR, and so forth. So let's talk about culture. You know, everyone's heard about ChatGPT, but actually there's a number of models that you'll probably encounter. And I just wanted to bring this to attention because they all do similar things but have various capabilities. And the reason I bring this is just sort of bring to the forefront that when we talk about AI, that's a pretty wide field. In this case, we're talking about generative AI and agents as it applies to doing knowledge work. And so you'll see, for example, we know what OpenAI's is ChatGPT. They have their various models and they're updating them. The important thing in that is it's multimodal, which means when I say vision, voice, image, it can speak, it can take text, and it can take visual input, both processing and output. I'll share some stories as to why that's important. We mentioned Anthropic. Their model is called Claude. It is probably, you know, we joke about bad AI writing. Claude is probably the best writer out there. So if you really want to sound like a superstar, take your output from ChatGPT, rerun it through Claude, and you'll find that the quality of the writing is infinitely better. You have ones like Grok, which is XAI, which is a branch under sort of the Tesla conglomerate. It has a lot of real-time data, and it is tied to X/Twitter, so it pulls a lot of information from there. The reason that that's valuable is there can be very fast-paced news events, and you can use it to summarize a lot of information very quickly. Also, it's very strong mathematically. In that sort of search field, Perplexity uses a variety of models, brings those together, and is really a generative AI search tool. But it is rapidly coming up, and probably its big threat is to a lot of the established searches. So it's definitely one to watch and see how they go. And then, of course, Google itself, they have a very powerful AI called Gemini that is, just like with ChatGPT, is multimodal. And there's a lot of tools that are coming out there, and I would not count Google out either. So, I won't get super technical, but AI agents, these are tools that work within the various AI models to carry out tasks and functions. So what are agents? Well, they have a level of autonomy or independence. They can work and make decisions on their own based on a set of capabilities or skills or pre-programmed instructions. They can aid in the planning and development and follow those tasks. They can use various tools. Most of the time when you have an AI tie-in with some product or program, software, product, accounting package, whatever, there's usually some agent in between that is doing that. And to do lots and lots and lots of repetitive tasks, what you'll start hearing over time is all this talk about agents. And these will be deployed. Just think of them as deployed digital workers that will carry out these functions. The important thing with that, though, is because of sort of that neuronal knowledge level, they are capable of self-improvement, so they learn as they do work, and they can improve, make suggestions. They can tie into the larger models and do that, and they have memory. So this is super high level, but it's important because you're going to be hearing these terms a lot more over the coming year because it's very, very big deal in how the AI landscaping for knowledge work is shaping up. So this is from a McKinsey study, very recent, was published this summer, and just looking at AI engagement and use of generative AI within the workplace. And they measured it in number of functions within a company. And for a company to use at least one, let's say HR, IT, finance, that would be the number of functions within it. So companies using AI, according to the summer survey, was about 72% in at least one area. I'm sure that's probably similar to here in the audience, maybe even higher at this point. What's interesting is now more than half of companies, 2 or more. And you'll see that there was this huge jump in 2023, and that was the emergence of ChatGPT, which is sort of a front-facing generative model to the public. So it was sort of flatlined for a number of years and has really taken off. And it is the highest in the professional services because knowledge work is the easiest to adapt. So, but how are employees using it? Well, you can see this huge jump from last year to just the summer of this year, where more than half of employees are either using it outside of work or in both. Very few have no idea or no exposure to that. So you're looking at 90% now. So it's pretty much broad in the public consciousness. I'm sure everyone here has heard that. But this rate of adoption is one of the highest, if not the highest, rate of adoption of any technology that has come about. Boston Consulting Group did a survey with Harvard University to look at, and this was focusing on ChatGPT usage and what were employees reporting. Well, they said that they were finishing more tasks, on average about a little over 12% more tasks. They were finishing it 25% faster, and they got higher quality results. So they did more work faster and at a higher result. And that's why you're seeing such a rapid adoption, because of the usefulness at almost any level of this technology. And you'll see why that's been important for us, but I expect this number will go up quite a bit, because this is still taking that we're very, very early on the adoption curve and knowledge curve. But if you said to anybody, especially from an adoption standpoint, hey, I have something that can help you do your work faster and better in less time, wow, well, who wouldn't take that? Of course, the key is then also the management expectations is, well, if you can get 20%, 30% more done, then I start pushing that, and then you'll start to see the cycle that goes from that. The quality improvement part was really interesting. So they measured a series of task quality and outputs, and these are somewhat subjective. So the exact weighting is not important, but what the outcomes are. And they had a group that did a pre-programmed series of tasks and products, and one that did, and measured the quality from a third group, like a QA, to see what was the quality of the output on what they call a one-shot. A one-shot is you just do it the first time. Most of our work is iterative, and we'll go back through and do it. But they found that those that used AI had a notable increase in the overall quality of their output. And what was really interesting about that is employees who were rated either by self or by the company rating, as in the bottom half of the capability or skill criteria, had the biggest jump. You'll see that they moved, and now they're within just a few total percentage points of the top performers. So what does that mean? Does that mean that if you're really, really good, you're not going to get much value out of this? but it is going to make your weaker performers do that much better. Well, there's a little bit of that, but there's actually probably more to it than that, and I think this number is going to change over time. The reason that I think from the most recent stuff that I've been reading is it's not universal, but the people that are looking for and willing to adapt and help, let's say you see something that's going to help you, you really believe is going to help you do your job better. So the existential fear is, if I'm not doing my job very well, I might be out of a job. Oh wow, this new technology helps me do my job really well. I'm adopting it, I'm going to use it. The top performers are more resistant, not universally, because they see it more as a threat. So this is all still being explored, but part of this change might be that some of the resistance is, well, wait a minute, this is an affront to human dignity. I went to school, I did all of this, and I'm not going to allow some bot to come in and take my work. And so it sort of goes down. And I'll give you, this was just published last week, so I didn't have a chance to include it in here. But they took a group of doctors, and again, this one shot, so this is like just, you get one scan, and they looked at a whole series of conditions and were to make a diagnosis about a patient. And on a one-shot scan, doctors had about a 72% accuracy on average with that. Aided by AI, they had a 79% accuracy. When the AI conducted the evaluation entirely on its own, it was nearly 90% accurate. So the limitation actually came from what? Well, that's what is really starting to shape this. What did it come from? They're looking and saying it might also be the doctors really don't want to use the AI, so they get it, and it's like, well, I don't need that to tell me. That doesn't mean that they can't be superstars and they can go to a next level, but it's a total mindset change. It's a total mindset change. But that is something very interesting because, the AI is totally agnostic. It's just looking at it, says, here's what it is, here's what it's not, and it's not concerned about the things that we'll be talking about, which are really the more transcendent things of what make us human, the dignity of work, why we are what we are and what we're going to do. In fostering that, it is really important that your early adopters, your experimenters, the entrepreneurial mindset within your company, those people are going to help drive that change the most. And those people can come from any part of the organization. I've been talking with the faculty and with Dr. Edmond here in regards to, I consider this technology in particular one of the most democratizing and sort of creatively liberating technologies that we've ever had, because the barriers to entry in many areas go way down, because now you have an infinitely patient, we'll call it digital assistant or partner, on which you can sandbox, you can explore ideas or concepts from a myriad of dimensions. You talk about diversity of ideas and thought, you can have people who are not experts in a particular field contribute ideas, not to supersede those that were trained in that, but to bring perspectives that they might have felt completely outside of before. That is very transformative. So, upskilling for an AI-enabled future. Hey, we've all have our expertise and degree, but now this is coming in and it's changing it. So some of this was touched on, but what are the most important things? Digital literacy. I mean, understanding AI, machine learning, data analytics, not from a, you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be an expert, just kind of know what's there, know what's out there. Having that awareness, diving in, be aware of the transformations, the tools that are out there, very important. Try to get proficient. Like with those models that I showed you at the beginning, if you knew how to use them, I could really say it's phenomenal. I could give you so many examples of what it could do. I was sitting at a dinner party, and someone was saying, you know, I just don't really know how that would have any value to my life. And I said, well, you know, you could download the app, and they're not a technical person. And I said, take a picture of the menu, and you know your dietary restrictions, and ask it for some recommendations. And they're like, oh, wow, I could do that? They did. And it came back with some very good recommendations. It's like, oh, that is pretty neat. I hadn't thought of that. And I said, now take a picture of the wine list and ask it what wines would pair well with that, and maybe you don't want to spend money, and below a certain price threshold. And it gave these suggestions, and then they asked the SOM, and the recommendations were pretty much in line. Didn't tell the SOM that, by the way, but that's just a very, very simple application. You could do it at the grocery store. There's almost no application that you can't use that, and it's very, very important. So taking that same mindset into the jobs that we do, right? So that's the digital literacy, data literacy, understanding and how to interpret that. Now we're going to be flooded with all of this data, all of this information. How do we make good decisions with that, right? So understanding what the data means and how it drives our business processes is very, very important. The biggest things, critical thinking and problem solving. You approach it from that. I had shown a team member in our finance how, and they're not an AI expert, they're not really a computer expert, and how from, we'll call it the most basic question, how they could develop these sophisticated prompts to help do very advanced data analysis that they were using in another tool. And they didn't have to be an expert. This whole natural language processing and everything else is what's why I say it's very democratizing, it's very transformational. Be adaptable and flexible. So I think part of the reason the lower scoring performers moved up was they were probably more open to change. And I think top performers, we haven't even seen what they can do yet because it's a smaller group, and now they're sort of kind of opening up and becoming more comfortable with that. That adaptability and flexibility and being able to quickly change will make a huge difference. Emotional intelligence, you know, we talked about communication and collaboration. That is everything. And fundamentally, how is AI going to change our work? It's going to allow us to focus on building products, bringing forth ideas that have meaning for humanity. And I say that not to sound trite or too lofty, but I really fundamentally believe that. A lot of our work is transactional. It's the reprocessing of knowledge. Well, remember, these tools can do that so much more. But what are the metacognitive things that we bring to that process that drive that? So totally rethinking that, and I don't want to get too far afield for our discussion, but rethinking knowledge reprocessing versus what are we doing and building products, services, things for humanity and the human element. That is going to be one of the most important things, and that's where you're going to see some of the most incredible breakthroughs. The collaboration and teamwork, making connections, understanding how to work with cross-functional teams, cross-cultural teams, and non-technical teams. And that's why I'm saying we're already starting to see that, where we're starting to bring in people who would not traditionally be in that space, and there's going to be ideas, I believe, that are going to be unlocked and discoveries because you have an entirely different view that the barriers to entry were just so high, they just couldn't participate. And now there's whole new tools for them to participate. Big thing, ethics and responsible AI use. Because it's so capable, there's a lot of things that could go off the rails, and this is a very big area within AI to discuss right now. But understanding the ethical considerations, fairness, transparency, algorithmic biases, all of those things are really important. And then as you implement it in your company, and I'll talk with you about some of what we've done, understanding that and its impact. And then, of course, strategic thinking, thinking about where you want to go as a business and what you want to do. We've all heard of IBM. They're a legacy company, legacy technology company, Big Blue. They have a lot of embedded systems in running a lot of the back-end stuff. So stuff we don't often deal with, except when it goes wrong, and then if you're managing that, we all know the problems with that. Well, what they're trying to do is, just taking them as example, they are really pushing this upskilling initiative because they have a pretty deep and long-standing core group of technologists that, again, this is transforming that. So what you'll see is they look at what are the strategic essentials, the elements for the enterprise, and then they put it to work very specifically in various discipline areas. So R&D, marketing, data, coding, and HR. They've put together a whole program for a lot of the on-the-job training, and I'll talk about this a little bit. Well, but that's using the tools while doing the job, because you can create this sandbox where you can do a lot of this and learn in real time pretty fast. Looking at the skill gap analysis, putting that together, mentorship is key with your key leaders, and the career path. What does it all mean, and where am I going, and why is that important? So what have we found here with our company? So, we were sort of aware that this was coming up, but we started with a series of conversations and a lunch, and we had one person in the company who was really an AI expert. We're not an AI company. So what we call them a sort of a lunch and learn session. Sometimes they call them like a brown bag, and you bring a group of people together. It was very informal, but it was an eclectic group of people to talk about what we might do and how we might go. And from that, these stories get generated, meaningful stories. And this is the human element of, could we do this? Could we do that? Here's a concern that I have. But it's like a conversation amongst colleagues and friends. So we didn't start with, the big splash of, okay, we've got this whole big formal process and everything else, because we're learning, right? We're learning the same as everybody else. And it brought people together much more openly. And we tried to address the concerns directly, and that is something that's ongoing. There's a lot of outdated or false information that's out there. And some stuff that was sort of true becomes false over time. I remember when we talked with some of our key developers early on, they just like, this doesn't really have any value for me. All these generative AI systems are just elaborate word prediction generators, which was kind of true, but that's very far afield from where it is now. So you might hear a lot of that. And what really underlines that? The job fears, right? Because the number one thing is, well, wait a minute. If this thing can write and do that, then what's going to happen to me? And we saw that immediately. It still exists, and I think it's something that will exist continuously through 2030 and probably well beyond. I don't know the conversations we'll be having in 2030. Maybe it'll just be, we'll all have our AI bot representatives here, and they'll all be talking amongst each other. But the biggest thing was to demonstrate value. And when a few people saw value and a real world example, and we started very small, we saw that there was a much more positive perspective, because this was, how does it help me? The biggest thing about, is AI going to replace me? No, it's not. But a person who uses AI could. So instead, be that person. Be that person. You're not going to replace yourself. You're replacing the old of what you did. But you have this tool. You're right here, right? You're on the forefront. Be that person. You'll be the superstar. And if you can see how you can use that, I think that does go a long way to help the fear. Really, though, avoid the AI advancements. The stuff we're talking about today by this time next year, as you saw from the other stuff, it's going to be it's going to be well beyond where we are today. And things that were not possible today will be possible. Try to avoid the resisting the change. And I keep bringing this up. Don't focus solely on the technical skills. And don't compete with the AI, because we're not here to learn a bigger body of facts, right? Because we can never compete with a system that can subsume vast quantities of data in an instant, right? We're not here to be regurgitating facts. We want to understand concepts. We want to know the hows and whys of something works. That's the dimension that we bring. But just raw technical facts, good to know, but you could never learn enough to keep up with these systems. And that's, again, the difference between, you're not a machine. We are not a machine in that sense. There are transcendent qualities that human beings bring to the process, and I think we're going to start hearing that a whole lot more. It's not merely transactional. So harness AI effectively, bring those unique human perspectives, become a partner and collaborator with these tools, and identify where it enhances. You know, does AI replace creativity? No. Use AI to spark new ideas, new concepts. That's where I think we're going to have an explosion in all sorts of breakthroughs on things that we've never even thought about, because you can play with ideas in a way that is so accessible that you never could before. AI is my competitor. I mean, these are all things that we've heard, right? AI is my competitor. No, it's my collaborator. It's my partner. Think of it as, you know, your digital assistant. Will AI replace me? No, because AI is my trusted assistant now. And it can work. And if you see it that way, you'll be able to do that. One of the things that we did was just focus on the practical. So if you were to start a project, I'd say focus on something very practical for the next 6 months and just build from there. Technical skills are good, but the adaptability and creativity is even more important. If you haven't used those models, or if your company hasn't, and by the way, there's more than those out there. I just put the most prominent and most powerful ones that are out there. Make them available. They're very inexpensive right now, by the way. And it's good to have a couple of those accounts and encourage people to just dive in and use them. That is where the greatest learning will happen. And then you can start putting mentors in place that can sort of help shape and guide that. As was stated earlier, AI is not an IT function. IT may manage the rollout and the deployment, but you should look at AI as an assistant for any and every department. Start small, celebrate those wins, because you're going to have them. You probably have some within the first week or two, maybe even faster. But really celebrate that so people see that there's value there, and that demonstrates value. You know, there's a quote from one of the developers that I thought was really poignant, and it said, you know, it's really scary to have a career and feel like something like AI will take it all away and you'll just be replaced. And I thought about the doctor study this week, or any of us. You know, many of us, we've spent so much of our lives in school, in training. We've invested our heart and soul. Much of our identity is tied into our profession, and it shapes who we are. And to think that that kind of knowledge work, which it won't, but to think that that could take that away, I think is really core for a lot of that. And I can say, running a software company, it's a huge existential fear, and it's not one that has gone away. We're sort of like always trying to be on the forefront, but you know, a lot of people are facing that. Everything that I hear is the number one thing is, what does this mean for me, and am I going to be replaced? That is the number one thing. So adapt and grow, ride the wave. I mean, this is a fundamental sea change, so ride that wave as much as you can. You can't fight it at this point. It's a force of nature. So, see how you can look at that. Try not to focus too much on I'd call it the very limited technical specification, but become very much more big picture. Think in big ideas as much as you can, because that's where you're going to get your best value out of that. Be willing to switch. By the way, all those tools that I showed you, a year from now, some will still be there. Probably most of those will be there. But there'll be others. And that's always going to change. So just always keep on top of that and look at that. We don't have a particular AI system that we're dedicated to, because one thing is very good at one and another is at another, and those always are changing. This one is really big, is natural language. I like how Dr. Raymond talked about, I don't like prompt engineering either. The reason why this technology is so valuable is because you don't have to learn a second language to make it work. You can talk to it like a normal person. You really can. And it's getting better at that. You could start with something as simple as, can you tell me about X, And from there you could dive well in. And then by the end of it, you could say, can you write a comprehensive prompt that covers the whole body of knowledge and objectives that we had in this conversation so that I can use it again when I start from scratch? And you know what it will do? It'll write one of the most sophisticated prompts you've ever seen, something that would probably take you half a day to a day, even if you were an expert in it. And you could start with the simplest thing of, can you tell me about X? And it's that whole chain of thinking. And I just use that as an example of saying, that's how accessible this stuff is. It's very, very accessible. And it can be intimidating, but it's just sort of reframing that. Don't compete with the AI, just use it to be better and smarter. So one of the last things I just want to touch on is protecting your IP and digital security in the world of AI. And some of this is very practical. So despite that most employees have either used it at home or at work, less than a third of the companies have any sort of AI policy for their company. People are using it, and in many cases, they're putting competition-sensitive data out there. Nobody really knows what's going on. And unless you take certain steps, anything you put into the model gets absorbed into its training model. It's all in that brain. And I don't even think the AI companies couldn't tell you how much they have. The quantity of data, right, grows exponentially. And who knows what it will come up with all of that massive amount of data. But you can exclude your company's data from those training models, but you got to have a policy. You got to know what you're doing there. So understand what tools are going to have access to your data. You've got to vet them. You've got to know the cybersecurity aspect. You got to know what kind of data is going out and how you're protected, where your data is stored, and understand the policy around that. You've got to make sure that people don't use personal accounts, though, with your company data. That was one of the things that we had, because most of our software is proprietary and protected as trade secret, right? Because you don't really trademark, you don't really put patents on a lot of software, because those techniques and applications then would be known and open. So most of it is trade secret protected. Well, if we have developers that are going out there and just putting all that code in a non-protected model, well, I don't know who will be able to access it, and I don't know where it will come out. And it might even come out of saying, hey, by the way, have you thought of this novel solution to a problem to some competitor? So it's not exactly sharing our code, but it is sharing all the techniques because we trained it on it. So no public, no personal accounts. Only use company tools, and you can set up these. OpenAI calls them teams-based accounts, not to be confused with Microsoft's 365 teams, but they're like team-based accounts, and your data is protected, data at rest is encrypted, it's siloed away from the main training model. It won't upload your data to their training model. That's the simplest and easy thing to start using these right away in a fairly safe method. All of the ones that I mentioned up there have corporate/Teams accounts. They're well worth it. For example, OpenAI, it's $25 a month per user, and I can tell you for most things, the productivity gain that you would get from that will pay for every single person's account for the month, every single month. So use that and make sure you got that control. So as we wrap up things, though, there's a book that was published in April of this year that really talks to the sort of the bigger and high-level things called co-intelligence. Professor at the University of Pennsylvania named Ethan Mollick. And this is more like a practitioner's view. So this is not a technical book. And it's living and working with AI, and it tries to address the very big questions that we're all reaching with. And it's a good snapshot, it's a good perspective, and especially if you're not familiar with that, I really would recommend that book. It's on our reading list within the company, and it has been helpful to people, both very technical and non-technical people. But, you know, as I look at it, AI is here to enhance our abilities. It can help us unlock creativity, skills, but it will not replace them. Well, AI can handle very complex tasks. And as I said, don't try to compete with it on large-scale data analysis. That's where it is. It will never match the human element. It'll never match creativity, empathy, and intuition. And these questions you're going to hear ethicists talking about greatly. But you know, what are the metacognitive aspects that make us human? What are those transcendent qualities that do that? And those are things that we have. I mean, we did invent AI, so remember that. And human creativity is irreplaceable. AI is only as creative as the knowledge we put into it. It's going to learn and it's going to change. But that's why I keep saying, and we're learning this, rethink of what you do and why you do it as sort of a fundamental meaning. And what is the meaning? Not transactional. Because those AI agents, the AI, all this change in the workforce it's all transactions based. So what is the meaningful element of work and why we do what we do? Those are going to be very big questions that probably at some future forum I think will be being asked, maybe even right here. Look at collaboration, not competition. And by seeing it, I really do. That is my hopeful thing. I think we are going to see opportunities. We are going to see new breakthroughs that have never been seen before. I'll leave you with this one anecdote. There was a doctor who is a neurologist, and he had been studying migraines. That was sort of his field of specialization. And he used AI to find the connection with magnesium and magnesium deficiency and its role in migraines, and just recently published a paper based on that. And he had found connections that no one had made from dozens of journals, all publicly available information, more than 300 journal publication articles that have been published, because the people in those groups just simply don't talk. And nobody has the time or bandwidth to read 300 articles to make those types of connections. And so how magnesium works in helping both control and impact migraines, and his perspective on it is considered groundbreaking. And yet all that data was publicly available. No one was able to make that, and that's not a human deficiency. It's a difference in the way that we look and learn. So that is just one of many breakthroughs that'll come up, and I think we'll see that in medicine, in science, you name it. I think we're really going to unlock quite an age of transformation. Yes, there are a lot of risks, but there's a lot of good that will come into it. And my hope is if enough people have that perspective and we have that opportunity, I really do think that there can be a bright future. Ask me in a couple of years and we'll see if I still have that same message, but right now that's what I believe. So, and as we always tell our team, we're working to empower and expand, not looking to replace. So we're hopeful for the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for a wonderful and very informative speech. And by the way, this reminds me of the necessity of integrative medicine, because you have each of us, especially after a certain age, has gone to a bunch of different specialists, and each specialist treats only their own stuff, right? So you may end up with 15 different medications for 5, 6 different conditions, but no one integrates this information in order to treat you in a more holistic way, and that's what probably AI can do, right? Integrative medicine. That's what we want to have at the end. That's what old doctors used to do before, when you had a family doctor who would know your whole history and who could treat you for pretty much anything, right? By integrating knowledge from different fields. Let's take a 10-minute break and get back here in 10 minutes for a wonderful and informative panel. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue our program. I'm very excited to have our panelists already join the podium, and they will introduce themselves in a second, but I would like to introduce our moderator, Susie Landin. Susie is the Chief People Officer of Allogene, is a biopharmaceutical company. She's held leadership roles in the full life cycle of global human resources, talent acquisition, operations, mergers and acquisitions, and business expansion in several biotechnological companies. Previously, she's been with Unity Biotechnology, where she served as a Chief Human Resource Officer for 6 years. And prior to that, Susie was a Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Kythera Biopharmaceuticals until its acquisition by Allergan, where she was responsible for designing and implementing all people systems supporting the company. Earlier in her career, Susie held various positions at Amgen, including an expatriate assignment to support the build-out of Amgen's worldwide distribution facility in the Netherlands. She has also served as a strategic HR business partner for research and development, and ultimately served as Senior Director of Human Resources responsible for strategic staffing and succession planning. Susie is a proud alum of California Lutheran University, and that's right, and a trustee of the university's Board of Regents. And now you can applaud. Susie, the mic is yours, and the panel is awaiting.
No pressure at all. Well, while we're on introductions, we're just going to start from here. If you'll give us a quick bio. We'll start with you, Chris. Uh-huh. Is it still true that when you talk, you need to click the mic and the other ones need to be off? Is that a tip? Oh. Oh, everyone turn them over and click there we go. Thank you, sir. All right, Chris. It's red. There you go. Do the other ones have to be turned off?
Okay, now it's on. Thank you, Susie, and I am so pleased to be with everyone today. Aaron did a fantastic job of, I think, introducing this topic and giving us a lot of things to kind of get an idea of what this journey is like. I will just say that we walked that journey with him and have experienced a little bit of what he said. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chris Meissner. I am the CEO of Meissner Corporation. We're a company headquartered in Camarillo with about 800 employees globally, manufacturing, of course, in Camarillo as well as in Ireland. A large development going on in Athens, Georgia. We are in the bioprocessing space, and we don't make drugs, but everything that's required to make drugs, we're involved in those areas, particularly single-use assemblies and sterilizing filters.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Give us a quick one. We won't pass over you, but we.
All right. I won't repeat who I am, other than what would I say at this point?
Well, software engineering, and you
Oh.
said, remind us again how many employees?
Yes, our company is a little over 100 employees. We're a
Okay.
small business here in Camarillo, and also presenter emeritus.
Yes, there we go. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Shafia Hayek from PennyMac.
Can we hear?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
That's good. Yeah. From PennyMac, a mortgage company, a leader in the mortgage company. We are about 4,000 employees. We lost some about 2 years ago due to the market, but fortunately now it's picking up. And it's all over the states. We have about probably 14 locations in different states. And my role within the company, I work for HR, responsible for system and technology, do a lot of recommendation, working with different functional team within the company. And AI, as Aaron said, and everyone, we've been hearing it, it's a hype nowadays, and no matter what, it's creeping upon us quickly. We better learn it, we better adapt, and I think, Aaron, did you leave anything for us to say? We'll find out. But I'm looking forward to this. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Shafia.
Thank you.
Drew.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Drew Powers. I'm the city manager for the City of Thousand Oaks, organization of about 400 full-time employees serving this great community. Also alum of the Masters in Public Policy program here, so really happy to be part of the team. I've worked in local government for about 25 years in 3 different cities on the East and West Coast.
Awesome. Thanks, all. Without further ado, we're going to jump in, but consider this part of the, time together as a bit unplugged, and that's kind of how we've met each other as we've prepped for that. It's been fun to kind of have those conversations and really realize that we're at different stages, although I think most of us, Aaron, I agree with Shafia, like what else did you leave for us to talk about, because you gave us such a good foundation. But I think for most of us, we're feeling like we're just scratching the surface. So I think we're going to all learn from each other here today. But we're going to jump in, and again, in unplugged format, I'll try to make eye contact when someone's ready to answer. But how can companies introduce AI initiatives while ensuring they maintain a positive and inclusive workplace kind of corporate culture? And again, some of this can be hypothetical, like this is kind of what I'm thinking needs to be a part of that, and also kind of experiences in doing that in your workplaces. Oh, there you go, Shafia.
Yeah, introducing AI, it's been mentioned, but I think it becomes to the leadership role. How do we introduce it? I think addressing the benefits and why we're implementing this technology, it's very important before it creates a lot of noise and fear from employees. So addressing that, and also have strategy. How you gonna address that? How you gonna implement? Are you starting with small projects, pilot projects, and also assessing your systems? You don't jump into large projects before knowing what you have and where is the focus areas. So addressing you should have developed your strategy first and then communicate the strategy to the whole population. So you get the buy-in up front and address any fear, any concerns about this technology.
Great. Anybody want to add to that?
I'll just add as, sort of the public sector representative up here, we're in a unique space as it relates to AI because unlike some private businesses that have more directed, more singular focus, we do a lot of different businesses, from water and wastewater management to planning and community development to records retention and public works. So the way in which we go about dispersing our trainings related to AI or incorporation of AI matters a lot in the public sector because we're dealing with lots of different employees that come from lots of different backgrounds. And so we're really focused on a policy and training basis of trying to incorporate that in a meaningful way throughout our organization without leaving certain sectors of our workforce behind.
Great, thank you. Chris?
We find that the teams, every department is excited to jump into technologies that use AI technology. Marketing has just finished using AI to take somebody's presentation that was made at a conference. They now have it in Japanese, their same accent, but with a Japanese accent, their same voice, tone of voice. And they're able to do it literally with the push of a button. They're so excited about it. Every department has these initiatives and is grasping it. The challenge that I have is a little bit what what Aaron alluded to, which is individuals using AI to dramatically increase their productivity, to increase the quality of their work, and who gets the credit for that? So we have customer service people that struggled to write a quality email, and they did not make the same pay as their colleagues that were superstar communicators, but now they can pretty much match their output, and the quality is arguably higher. The fear isn't that they'll be replaced. The fear is that I don't want my workers to know that I'm using this tool that makes me all of a sudden brilliant. And how do I compensate that? So if somebody has been there for 20 years and, has a steady job and getting minimal increases, but now they're using tools that make them a superstar, does the superstar make a lower pay, or is their pay higher? So this is the conversation that we have internally. These are the things, this is the ethical dilemma that we grasp with, that we challenge. So it's a journey that we have not exactly figured out, but I was, of course, intrigued by what Aaron was saying, which touched on this exact topic. So
The can of worms is open, for sure. But I wanted to, Aaron, you did such a good job, and I think what we're all maybe touching on, and Shafia, you got us started here on having a plan, and really, I don't want us to minimize how we communicate it, down to the word choices. And Aaron, I think your presentation and material was presented so optimistically and positively, and it can come down to, and Vlad, I'm not going to pick on you, but in your first slide, or one of the slides, you showed a statistic that 80% of today's workers will be affected by AI. What if we just changed the one word affected to enhanced? That kind of takes a little bit of the fear out. But I only bring that example up that says, as leaders, we really should be mindful down to word choices on how this is introduced, how this is integrated, how it's recognized. So
Open AI's word choice. Open AI.
yes, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess it was in quotes, so it wasn't yours. So, but you know what I'm getting at, though. Just kind of affected puts you on your heels. Yeah. Enhanced sounds, hey, this is going to be good for me. Thank you for kind of getting us launched there. Kind of related, but how have your companies addressed employee concerns? So are you facilitating conversations? So you're saying this isn't something to be fearful? Or are you not starting there? You're starting with strategy, anything that you're doing in early days to minimize that?
Well, I can speak to, for us, because we started pretty much right away, and there, having an AI policy, that none of that even existed. So it started, that's why I said we started with the lunch and learn. I gathered a couple of, I'd call them key people, influencers, not Instagram influencers, but influencers in the company to talk about this, but in a completely, as much as you can, non-threatening way, where we could just be open to share ideas and concepts. And at that point, it was not to drive a policy. It was simply to get a gauge, a barometer of what was going on in the company, the view, what have people heard, what haven't they heard, myths, conceptions. And from that, we did form a policy, but policy didn't come for some time. There weren't even corporate accounts when we started. But the number one thing, and that has not changed, is that underlying fear. And, it's interesting, and I appreciate the feedback. I tried to be very positive about that in a genuine and authentic way. But even for myself, I've had to take time and really reflect on what that might mean. And that's why I use these terms about this sort of transcendent qualities we have as people, and what does humanity bring? What does our work mean? Those types of things. And without getting too philosophical about it, that really does trickle down into how, at least for me, and how I relate with our employees on a very human and empathetic level. And I even allow myself to feel that fear of, so how might I address that fear, and how can I speak to that? And it hasn't gone away. So it's a continuous process for us.
Yeah. Drew.
As I am spending time out within our organization, I have a little bit of a different, taking the pulse of where our team is, a little bit of a different view, in that I'm not sensing a lot of fear from our employees, especially on the line levels. And that's because in the public sector, we are inherently resource constrained. And we are operating under a set of conditions that continues to get more difficult to achieve. And just to give you an example of that, I was having a conversation this week with some of our planning team. And the state of California, over the course of the last few years, they've done a lot as it relates to housing. And in the public sector, policy changes with regularity. It used to be once or twice over a several-year span. Now it's multiple times a year. And one of the biggest areas that they've changed is in accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, granny flats that you could put in your backyard. And they really have focused on that as a way to incentivize people to build these. And the practical implications of that on the local level are, we used to have between 4 to 10 applications a year for ADUs in our community because it was very tough to build them. They were not incentivized. Now, with the changes in regulation to make it easier to do that, we've seen 30-plus laws over the last 5 years change. Yeah. And every cycle that changes, it has upped the volume. So far this year, we have 115 applications for ADUs in this community. So we have the same resources that we've had in that department. And so that has taken that volume, and it's now moved it to one of our top asset classes of something that we're processing. These new regulations require that we process them in a streamlined effect very quickly. And at the same time, we have relatively amateur folks coming in the door with a napkin drawn of their property line and those things. So as we move forward, incorporating AI into that process is something that our team is desiring, because they want to find ways to more quickly assist our customers to bring those types of applications forward, to build those things. But it has to be able to incorporate changes that are happening multiple times a year in policy. And so the stakes are high because people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for these, and they're bringing architects on board, and they're doing this. And so we are working with our team. They're seeking that tool and that resource, and we're working in real time to try to identify how are we going to meet those needs of our resource-constrained team.
You bring up kind of resource constraints as a way to kind of frame it. And I think it reminded me of oh so long ago, and when I describe the process, it's going to tell you how long ago I joined the company down the street, Amgen. But I joined with the explicit mandate to integrate and implement, at the time it was optical character recognition for resumes, right? That was a long time ago, and that's like a legacy system now. But the folks in HR at the time were reviewing hard resumes with a cover sheet that you check boxes that there were skills there, and they bought this system, and then I came in to kind of consolidate it with a head count of 3, and all these people said, well, what are we gonna do? I'm used to these stacks. And I was like, you get to elevate, and you get to kind of take your job to the next level. And so something about incorporating it into, maybe we don't put headcount to it, let's talk about technology, and then how can folks elevate and do the more kind of strategic decision-making, the compassion. I think of in our worlds, many of our worlds, AI is not going to help with employee relations. No one's going to want to have an employee kind of conversation or issue with a bot. So, I mean, there are places that, the human intervention is going to always be key. All right, Chris.
So Drew mentioned resource constrained, and in the private sector, our CFO is here. He'll be happy to know we also are resource constrained.
Right.
It's true in private industry. And the sweet spot for us is focusing on those areas that tend to be less desirable but require a high amount of human intelligence. And an example of that is our QA department. They respond to, I guess you could call them complaints. I hate to say that every customer isn't happy, but sometimes people have a problem. And they have a huge amount of data for how they've responded to those. And they're not very good at parsing that data to reuse it the next time around and recycle it. So when I talked to them and said, what if we incorporated AI and trained it on that data to respond to this? Currently, it's doing about 30% of their work. They said, yes, could you do that? And I said, you'd have to review it because it's going to maybe hallucinate or make mistakes. And they were like, oh, that's the easy part. If I could just proof it. So,
Exactly.
Shafia said have a strategy, absolutely fundamental. And for us, part of that strategy is leverage people's desire to eliminate some things that require a lot of thinking, but it just isn't interesting or challenging. It can be rote and routine. Pressure, customers want their answer today, and that's our sweet spot. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Kind of moving on to the idea of upskilling, and Vlad touched on that. But what basic skills should organizations consider developing in the employee population to prepare them for a future where AI can enhance, complement their roles?
I think one of the points I saw this on the presentation, employees should be more focused also on data, understanding data, analyzing that data, and when decision made or recommendation made by AI, they should be able to understand also what's the rationale behind this. So with that being said, they don't have to be very technical, but I think understanding using technology tools or maybe how the cloud thing works, this is very important, because if you don't understand this technology aspect of it, you don't have to be an expert, but basic understanding will help understand the models built behind these AI tools. Mm-hmm. So for me, training is important, and involving them, I would say hands-on. Some companies will give you a sandbox to experiment. So this is very important to involve them and give them that kind of experience. And that might actually help them to have the buy-in faster. When they see it, they touch it, and they experiment with this, they might see that benefit. So I would say having those skills and also shifting, because now you have AI doing most of the work, collecting data, generating reports for you, analyzing data. But you have to have that focus on creative analytics thinking skills. You need to improve your analytics skills to understand this data and the decision that you need to make. So again, human still involved to review those decisions and those recommendations. So training in that area and improving the skills on strategic thinking, critical thinking, it's very important.
Agreed. Aaron?
Yeah, I very much agree with what she said, because if you look at it, just sort of putting it into these kinds of terms, if we're starting from zero on any particular task, maybe you have processes or procedures, but I know when working with engineers, and let's say we're responding to a proposal, an RFP or something, and there's a lot of technical writing. It's very, it's just a lot of drudgery. And if you can get to a place, what's the hardest place for people to start when they're writing? The blank page. And say, well, okay, well, I got to do my outline, I got to do this. And I'll give you just one very practical example. If you could take something and say, generate an outline from the desired outputs of this, and it can put together an outline. I've watched engineers who struggle very deeply. They're brilliant, but if they look at a blank page or whatever, they can't even get started. But once they see it, that it's like it just opens a floodgate. And they're able to say, oh yeah, I know about this and this and this and this and this. And now they're interacting collaboratively, and you get a brilliant product. And so one of the ways that we look at it is AI can do the 1 through 6, like sort of lower grade stuff, like instantly. And you're spending all of your time building your product, your output, to get to that 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10. I saw a thing from a graduate student who was working on their doctorate, and they said they were able to do with OpenAI's latest O1 model that took them 9 months of coding to put together. And this is a mathematician, and they were able to replicate that. Obviously, they had a greater understanding in one afternoon. And they said, you know, if I had had this tool when I started my dissertation, I would have taken on a much harder problem, because it unlocked certain things I hadn't thought of. Not that they weren't capable of doing it, it opened up a possibility. So I think right there, just where people, you can see that you focus more of your time on the high value input, and that's why you get so much better. You guys remember the graphs where it showed non-AI and then the AI? The quality shifted because the time now was spent on the high value return type stuff.
I love it. I love it. The other thing I thought of where you could start is maybe upskilling in attributes that are more considered kind of the EQ part. And by that, I think it was something you said, Aaron, and I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool to use this as, you know, some inertia behind training, like around change management or resilience, adaptability, creative decision making, and how do you kind of use that and still reinforce that AI is a complementing kind of tool, not a replacement tool, but you're really kind of working on the more higher thinking. You know, I know there's a kind of a better term there, but you know, the kind of the human intervention part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say AI, or these language tools, are infinitely patient and usually gracious teachers. So, and this is the example I talked about with finance, where we talked about a concept, and ultimately they needed to build a prompt. They don't know anything about that, but starting from a very simple question, and I really can't stress this enough, this sort of, you know, inquisitive mindset where you just keep going deeper and deeper in the question to build something. And this technique of, okay, now let's take this body of knowledge and form this into a prompt. But what came from that too was they were actually learning about certain things, and they could ask the dumb question that they wouldn't want to ask. Oh, I'd be too embarrassed to ask. But now they can ask with that safety. There's no judgment, right? They just, oh, you can ask it 100 times and it'll keep explaining it. Can you explain this? Can you explain this? And what we've seen is when people feel more comfortable, and this actually gets to something that Chris had said, that the stigmas are reduced. I think that's actually tied in with the upskilling. Like if they knew, hey, I can just go to the AI and here's these set of things that I want to learn. So you have to have sort of a program with that, but that you can go into this AI-assisted learning and it's infinitely patient and gracious. I think you'll see that people will dive in more. I know that we have started to see that once they sort of get over that hurdle.
And listen to those words, those descriptors, patient and gracious. Don't see that a lot when you talk about AI, but that is super impactful to say. Yeah, Drew?
Yeah, just sort of building on that theme of patient and gracious. We have a very much a multi-generational workforce, and so we have seen, at least in the last year, some benefits of pairing some of our newer, higher professionals with some of our legacy employees in gentle conversations around incorporation. And aside from formalized training programs, aside from any of those things, we have seen impact in those areas, productivity impact and other things, and things that are very baseline level, but it has reduced the stigma because it's built that connectivity between the new hires and folks that have a lot of legacy knowledge of our organization, and helped those that maybe were not operating as efficiently in some certain areas to be a little bit more and more comfortable.
Great. Good. I see you turning your mic on.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah.
There is an HR element as we talk about training, but ironically, one of the challenges that we have ourselves is training our HR department not how to use AI, but to protect ourselves from AI. And I suspect many of you are facing the same challenge. Specifically, Aaron said 90% of people are independent of work using AI, and everybody, at least 90%, are using it to generate their resume. And I've had multiple managers in our company say, resumes are becoming worthless. I probe and ask deep questions, and of course I can tell that that they haven't done what the resume says, but it takes a lot of time. Can't we have HR screen these people out? And HR, of course, is saying, yes, but I don't know the job well enough to probe deep. So it's a challenge we face. It's one particularly that I'm sure Kowloon is training your students to generate the best resumes they can. And of course, we in business are trying to figure out tools to say, yeah, but what's real and authentic? And we don't have this figured out, but for us, it's becoming exceedingly critical. And again, it's just part of this journey.
Oh, that's great. Gosh, as an HR professional, I'm like, oh, what a great value add project to kind of get with the business leaders and say, how do we get alongside of it, not in front of it? But if we know that maybe the first look is not all there, how can we come up with processes? But I mean, what a great way to kind of do a value add versus some of the kind of checking resumes with a paper sheet and checking competencies that are on the paper. But how are we doing on time? Speaking of, since I...
No, we have about 15 minutes. You can
Okay.
do the audience now or later.
No, not yet. No, go. And if anyone has a burning question, of course, get my attention here. I'll keep going. But yes, we can definitely pepper in your questions.
15 minutes.
Also for, awesome. Great. Shifting a little bit, we talked about this a bit, Aaron did on IP, but what practical steps can organizations take, or what are your organizations doing to protect IP, intellectual property, as they begin kind of down this AI road?
Well, I did have a whole section on that, and I can say, make sure that nobody is using personal or public accounts. That's probably the biggest thing.
Can
You
I
know-
stop you? And how do you frame that to take the fear out of it? Because that sounds like, you want all my stuff on be able to kind of track it, and you're going to see all my dumb questions and realize, oh, she's not really that good at her job. How do you take the fear out of that, what you just said? Because
Yeah.
that sounds like, oh, Big Brother wants to.
No, actually, that is a very good question. In this case, it's, we would like you, we need you, well, the policy specifies that you can't, but the reason that we need it is our data that is anything you put in there goes into the giant brain, right? It goes into the training model. So anything that is not explicitly kept from that, where you say do not incorporate into the training model, will go into the training model. It's this vast ocean, right, of collected knowledge. So what we do is essentially, if you put something in there and you don't protect from that, our competitors, anybody, anywhere, can essentially have access to that. And if you're working on something really good, and you've come up with a novel approach or something, AI may suggest that same approach to other people because you just taught it, right? It's the training data. You're teaching the AI. So as much as you're getting from it, it's also learning from you, even if it's patterns, habits, styles.
So you take the time to educate the workforce, and it's a kind of probably describing a bit of a, not technical, but a firewall that says we're trying to protect our enterprise and our organization. This isn't your employer tracking what you're doing in the company's account, right? It's
Correct, yeah. And, sort of in the same way that you can't send, you're not supposed to use personal emails for company business. So
build on that.
yeah, we would try to relay it to something that they're familiar with.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's like with phone policies or whatever, once you sort of have that mix, then it starts getting into question of whose data. So by having that separate account, we've provided, so we do frame it that we've provided something that I don't know what questions you might be asking on your personal account, and we don't want access to that either. But, this is just for company business, and it protects you, it protects the company, it protects your ideas, but it also does allow collaboration. So I do say that a lot of those Teams accounts allow a level of collaboration that you can't do on the independent account. So you can, and that's just starting to come online, but there's a lot of teamwork type stuff, and it's still very new, that you can do almost in group chats. You're not quite there, but you can share data, projects, all sorts
So
of
a dumb question from me is that trackable, recordable anywhere?
So you could go into that, and that would be an individual company policy,
But the ability's there. You could kind of look at all of that, those.
Yeah, but now in this case, if you have a personal account, you already have a personal account. We're just providing you another tool. It would be sort of like some people have their personal phone, and some people use their personal phone for work and personal. But as we know, especially in HR, that can create a lot of weird issues. So sometimes there will be a company-issued phone that is only for company business. And in this case, it's also to respect the person's privacy. So they're not losing anything. We're just providing an additional tool for them to use.
But you also don't intend to go back and look at that stuff, right?
On the
at this
company
time?
one,
Yeah.
not generally,
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
I mean, you've posed an interesting question. I will talk with the team about it. See, we don't have all the answers. We're learning here.
That just came out.
Question.
Yeah.
Isn't that the concern usually on the open AI, right? More than when you have a company AI, more protected, correct? So you're still sharing, like I would recommend not using any company information or personal information, putting it in the open AI, because no matter what, you have exposure. People working for this company, like I know they have policy, but how do you know your data, your personal data is protected? Is that right for public open AI, it's more risky than having a company where you have your own AI, but definitely it's protected and safe to use within the company. Less risk to exposing to personal information.
So whenever you put, and that's a valid concern, so you can have what they call local agents and so forth on your network. But if you were to use one of the large foundational models like ChatGPT, any of OpenAI stuff, on the enterprise or Teams account, they are in their own encrypted data store. So your information is on their servers, and that's always a concern, but it is encrypted and it's separated from any of the others. And then as far as the training data, if you use it, basically the model's intelligence flows one way. It doesn't flow back to the training model. So it'll process the data, it'll give you an answer, but it doesn't go back into their training data. But if you don't have that setting turned off, they default it because they want,
They want to collect
you-
data as much as they can.
they want
Yeah,
to collect as
true.
much as they can.
Yeah.
And so the problem that a lot of companies were running into on this was people would use, especially in the early days, people would just use that in a personal account, and the big data companies, they were quite happy to get all of that information. I know Apple, for example, banned its use entirely for that concern because engineers were uploading specs and detailed documents, and by the way, you can never get that data back, so it's still there in various forms. But
Besides Aaron, does anyone else's company have this company account that you've now communicated to employees or given them access to?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that one of the key messages here is the importance of the policy, and, local governments have not always, they're not in a place where we've been on the bleeding edge of the policy piece. Ours, in fact, we've had some vicious debates amongst the executive team, a lot of different perspectives within our creation of our policy, which we're actually going to be having ours signed in about 2 weeks. And we're working through the final components of that. But because of that, and because of being slightly behind the wave, you have a situation where you're going to have to reel back in sort of freelance usage of various tools, right, and incorporation of tools. And so that's the inherent challenge, because you have to do that in a manner that doesn't seem like you're taking away from your employees, and instead you're providing another tool. We're a Microsoft shop. Microsoft's Copilot piece for the government tenants is not even released yet. They're anticipating a Q4 release this year of Copilot. So that just gives you a sense on the government space that inherently being held back, and it's created an environment in which you've got a lot of ad hoc usage of tools.
Chris?
Technically, we can already see everything. So if they're using a personal device at work or not, it doesn't mean we're doing it, but we can see it. And what we do now is, for those people that are using ChatGPT, our policy is that you can't divulge any names, any personal identifying information, any company secrets, and then we try to enforce that as best we can. And we also are aware of who's using these devices, this technology, ChatGPT, in their Internet Explorer.
And is that through a company account or personal?
Right now, it's through a personal account
okay.
or subscription if they have it.
Okay.
But it is our intention to go to a company account because it's liberating. It gets exhausting to have to strip out all the names and replace it with something, generic in companies. So I don't think we're going to have the problem of the concern that we would be looking over their shoulder. The reality is, they know there has to be a motivation. Why would you care if I was asking really dumb questions like being patient? In reality, what Aaron said, we want to encourage that. We want to encourage them to experiment, but in a safe way. So creating this safe environment for them to do that, it's all about, it has to be authentic and genuine from management. if you are authentic, that this isn't something that's going to be used against you, it's going to help you, and here's why. Could we do this? Yes, but why would we do it? Well, it's always after something went wrong. Then, so we're telling the team, don't let anything go wrong, because that's when we begin the forensic analysis.
I think you're starting to answer a question you posed at the beginning of this, who gets the recognition? If you frame it like that, if an employee is curious and authentic in kind of not knowing what they don't know, and they ask, they probably should get the recognition for kind of bolting on a powerful tool, maybe.
Absolutely, and you know, I find that when people are doing something that's outside their normal area of expertise and they use one of these tools, they are very proud to share it. But when it's closely aligned with their expertise,
Like they should have.
yeah, and then it gets a little more, you know, gets a little more iffy. But the reality is that is the way to progress the conversation, to safely say, we know you're going to be able to, you're a superstar now, you're only going to get better. Others are going to make a quantum leap and catch up closer. That's not the conversation of the thing, help them.
Yeah.
And it's to authentically let them know it's okay. So from the CEO down.
Great, yeah, modeling, leadership modeling. All right, let's see, some other questions here. Anything from the floor yet? Do we need a mic? You want me to use, okay.
If you have a question, please introduce yourself first. Well, I know who you are, but to everybody else.
Thank you, Vlad. Marin Kukachev. I work in commercial banking. I also teach as an adjunct here at CLU. Just wanted to add on to the AI policy discussion, and you guys have kind of touched on it, but not explicitly said it. This ties directly to vendor management, and I'm sure you all have vendor management policies and third and fourth party risk. So this is a huge part of our risk discussion because it goes back to that idea of data, right? So data integrity and model risk management, model risk governance, that needs to be at the forefront. And I know that gets a little more technical, but understanding that everyone from frontline staff to your executives understand that, right? It's about protecting your data, and it's also understanding that monetization of data is the current most important thing in this AI cycle, right? Every single one of my bank vendors that's been servicing banks for the last 30 years is now suddenly coming out with an AI tool that can help us better predict climate risk for a commercial real estate portfolio and this and that and the other thing, right? And please pay the subscription. We'd love to let you play with our model. But it's about entering into these agreements based on your vendor risk management policy and saying, how do we get our data out? How much data do you have access to? If you get hacked, right, cybersecurity is a huge risk with all of this that is always a risk, but kind of ties directly into this data exchange. When there's forensic analysis, do you carry cybersecurity insurance? Can we access and audit that data to help preserve, or are you just going to purge everything because you're trying to cover, you know, CYA? So I think some of those conversations go a long way towards eliminating this idea. I think most of us know there is no privacy at work, digitally speaking, right? I've been through several consent orders with large institutions. That's really fun because then regulators and lawyers get involved and, you know, oh boy, I shouldn't have sent that instant message. But setting that baseline, and I think you guys have done a really good job of highlighting that this is another tool, right? Whether it's your laptop, whether it's your work phone, here's another tool to be more effective so that you can produce better value for the organization, better value for our customers, and be rewarded for that work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. There was another. Oh, now we're gonna have to pass. There. Okay.
Hi, Mike Teasdale from the Ventura County Board of Ed, and I'm also at the California School Boards Association. There's a big discussion in education about how to deal with AI, how to train people, and the problem of cheating. What I'm hearing from you, because my question is, what do you expect of people coming out of whether it's college or high school in terms of skills? And what I've heard from two of you is that, you know, once you use the AI, the quality level, productivity goes up. Do you think what your expectations are going to be for someone educated either at a high school or a college level, that AI is integrated into the way they work? So, you know, the service employee can write a good email, can describe a problem effectively. So I guess my question, how is this going to affect your expectations for new hires out of educational institutions?
I'll take it first, just because we've been having this conversation quite a bit internally and working on incorporating this into the interview process, frankly, as a line of questioning, to understand how various employees in various different types of jobs are able to think and reason and incorporate the use of technology, in particular AI. There's a fantastic article, if you haven't had a chance to come across it yet. It's in this month's Harvard Business Review. It's the cover story this month, and that I've had my executive team all read. And one of their quotes in there, which I think is just very relevant to that question and everything we've talked about, is that our professional success really depends upon our ability to elicit the best possible output from these models, and that their suggestion is that most people coming into the workforce today, and those that are continuing to grow within the workforce, are going to need a blending of what they call fusion skills. And I won't go into all the technical aspects of it, but it's this fusion of understanding how to modify their current professional discipline and incorporate that ability to elicit the best possible feedback from these models. And so we're working to try to incorporate that into the hiring process, and I think our educational institutions are going to need to really focus in that arena.
Yeah, very quickly, I can add to this. On the talent acquisition, when you, like AI, you can enable it, it's going to screen these resumes, and as you said, someone will write resume using ChatGPT, any AI tool, and will look the best resume on paper. I think it comes again to human involvement. There is a human, when you do the interview for those candidates, of course you're going to have that talk with this person. You can figure out, you should use your emotional intelligence, something that you can figure out, does this person a good fit for this culture? You can figure out from the question, the answers, the responses you get, does it fit well with this resume? So no matter what, you can screen many resumes, but when it comes to the interview, this is where is a lot of focus and training should be done with our recruiters or interviewer, how to focus and make sure this is a person that what it said on the resume, but figure out if it's a good fit for our culture, for the company.
Oh, down the line. Chris and go Aaron and Chris, yeah.
I would say we're right on board with that, and I can again relate a individual case. We hired a software developer who ultimately did not end up working out, and they were a junior software developer, and the person was, and this was earlier on, but seemingly very capable, and they were a very bright person. They had a wonderful resume, but what we noticed was, and this was in the junior segment, a total over-reliance on the AI itself. So deep understanding was what was missing. So to really get those incredible results from AI, you should have actual knowledge of that, right? I could go in and I could, like I mentioned that PhD, I could sit there and, pontificate on the nature of quantum energy strings or so forth, and make even something sound very knowledgeable, but in reality I don't have a knowledge in that area. So it's only going to amplify whatever I tell it. And so part of the thing is looking at AI as an amplification tool. So it can amplify knowledge, it can amplify capability, but if certain things are missing, it's also going to amplify the misinformation and the bad, and that will come out. And what we ended up having happen was that junior developer did not really want to engage, and sadly, they became totally dependent on that. So that is, I tried to be very positive, but that is a cautionary tale of that, we don't want to end up in a future where none of us know anything and we just turn to the AI God and ask it to instruct us. But that is a very real risk.
Yeah. Good point. Chris?
Two comments. I'm going to go back to the question that was asked. What does it mean for the future of education if some of the things that we work so hard to teach, like how to write a good letter, becomes not so critical if we have AI to boost us up to a really acceptable level? Well, at the moment, I can say that if you can't write a really good letter, it's pretty hard to recognize one when you see it. So we still want the skills of people that really understand this at a fundamental level. The second thing is there is going to be a need to add this creative aspect that Aaron talked about, where if we're using these tools, what's the human component that's at a higher level that adds the authenticity and the creativity that isn't there? So it's still to be determined exactly what this means from an education perspective, except that it's going to be difficult to have that high level creative skill if you don't have the fundamentals. So that isn't going to go away. This journey we walk, this exact question came up in our teams, like, does this mean we can change that customer service doesn't have to have a degree from a university in English? At the moment, it's like, no, they still need it. So we're walking this journey with you, but I want to say, I think that is quite some time off, because I think the skills that we want to bring onto the workforce are building on what you're already teaching. And that's exactly why the role for CLU and other universities are going to become only more critical as we adopt these technologies. So the other thing is that when we talk about things like resumes, one way is to have a human do it, but reality is resumes were always a screening tool. We wanted to go from 1,000 resumes to 100, and if we could, get it to 10. And so you've probably seen those tools. They kind of can be irritating, the ones that say, I am a human, and it shows 9 different pictures. It says, show the animal jumping. And they all look the same. It's like, is that jumping? It's like, they're going to an effort to say, are you a person before you book this reservation, or is it a bot? And so we're doing the same thing. I mentioned that we have department heads that are saying, I can't believe these resumes. So they're trying to come up with automated tools that give specific assignments that cannot be fulfilled with AI. They want to know that this person is qualified. They need a way to do it without interviewing 1,000 people. So yes, we could use brute force with our HR, but that's not what we're teaching. We're saying, what are the tools that we can give you to differentiate, to read it from 1,000 to 100 to 10 before we begin that human side? But this is not a change. It's just that, we kind of joke, how long will it be before we have AI writing to AI and having a discourse using your email, voice, and everything else because you've taught it with those tools?
Yeah.
And you literally are like getting the final conclusion. It's kind of one of the things I'm looking forward to, because I have so many emails every day.
That's why I kind of brought up that example from so long ago, this optical character recognition, because then the buzz was, what words do I need to put in here that'll get selected to kind of meet the filter from 1,000 to 100? And so, we're just kind of seeing that progress. A couple more kind of questions and areas that we wanted to probe on before opening it up. But building on for specifically this audience, what would your recommendations be in terms of AI, human collaboration, talent-related decision-making? So we talked about it a bit, but I kind of want to take the question, what other areas could you deploy AI in kind of the talent, people, kind of processes, decisions? We talked about resumes, kind of this sorting and filtering effectively or efficiently. Other thoughts, if you're deploying them now or kind of hypothetically?
One thing I would think about, as we said, you start with small projects, pilot projects, but very important if you want to focus on employee development, like career path or something. So you focus on your learning management system, right? You have courses there, and you have your career path, you have your goals, and you need an AI tool on top of this, so can recommend actually some courses for you based on your career goal or the career path. Some advanced AI tools also can monitor these progress for your progress with the courses, or so your profile will be up to date with your progress and also will help you with the growth within the company. So that's on the learning management system. And also looking at some repetitive tasks that usually you want to free up your employee time for doing more valuable work rather than doing dull tasks over and over again. So you think of those things that can get out of the way, but at the same time, you focus that time on engaging employee and developing your employee by implementing these AI tools.
Yeah.
We've been really focused, we're in a hyper-competitive environment in the public sector on a recruitment basis, and so we've been really focused on reducing the time to hire where we can. And we get hundreds of resumes, much like Chris, and for jobs. And so in the traditional public sector view, for senior level jobs, we'll do 2, 3, 4 panels worth of interviews. That takes an exorbitant amount of time to get through there. And sometimes we're wondering whether we're capturing properly the talent pool. And so we've incorporated some one-way interview stream technology that allows for a video-based subset review of folks. We can send out a couple prompting questions, and they have a couple shots to record a one-way response to that we can then review. We have not yet overlaid. There are AI tools that the vendors offer on top of that can look for key components, keywords, key things that can sort of help that further. We haven't gone to that next level, but it's an example of where the industry is guiding. And the public sector is a really fragmented tech industry. There's like 100,000 vendors. I see Mitchell here from Camarillo, who runs IT Unite here, and these vendors are pinging us every day with some great new product, but they're all fractured. They're all in very siloed spaces. And so I think there's going to be a lot of interesting evolution in that space, especially in the HR realm over the course of the next few years.
What do you think about compensation, total rewards, using AI? I wonder if it will kind of compete with the Radfords, Aons, of kind of, if you get the data in there, industries that are built around big databases. Could you get market trends? And I don't know. I pay a lot of money for third-party compensation consultants in a public company, so.
All I'll say is, depending on what you're trying to do, there's a lot that you could, if you had access to the raw data, that you could do some pretty incredible analysis, yes, that you would pay extra for.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah. All right, last question kind of up here. But I'm going to kind of, I think maybe Shafia touched on the leadership role, but what role could leaders play in guiding their organizations through these initial stages of AI adoption, particularly concerning talent management?
I mean, I think that evolves over time, but as I take stock of where I am right now in this moment, it's really about calibrating our throttle on this, which is I've got differing opinions across my executive leadership team, all very relevant opinions, but it's about finding that right throttle point of not pushing too far into a space that we get over our skis and create unnecessary risk and danger, but also not holding ourselves back from an environment in which increasingly employees are going to make determinations about where they go work based on your ability to train and incorporate modern technology into that work. And so you want to be a place that's leaning into that, but also taking the right calculated risks as you move forward.
We'll just, how about if we all just kind of answer this last one and then.
I would say, as we said, the strategy or the communication that you do, but most important, transparency. You need to be transparent with your employees, be honest, and also about educating them about the ethical guidelines. Because a lot of employees, they just probably use AI or they don't understand behind it, education very important and training for employees, and also involvement. I think involvement, collaboration with other functional area within the company, that gets a long way with the buy-ins with employees. So I would focus more on the communication, training, and educate your employees. That's my message.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I very much agree with that. And I would say it's helping them see the value added. You know, for some more than others, the threat aspect, you know, can be an inhibitor. But when they can see where there's real value added, and the leadership really has to be bought in. I mean, we're a small company, and this was and is a very, very important project for me. So I'm able to drive that from the top, and I pulled from, you know, from the line. So it's sort of a company-wide effort. But the leadership really has to believe in where they're going and model those behaviors. So, you know, when it started with, you know, the lunch and learn type things, and where we had these sort of like key groups, employee resource groups, where people were sharing the stories about what's going on and why it's important and how it's really improved their work life and their day, and they're seeing tangibles, even if they're small. That really changes things. Meaningful tangibles, you know, it's like that's meaningful, and that improves. And you start to snowball, you just sort of build on that.
Great. Chris?
The allure and potential of AI gives us a tremendous carrot to invest in this technology. At the same time, there's a fear that our competitors are going to get ahead of us, and that prods us in the back. As leaders, we're trying to navigate that in a way that there's no missteps. We have finite resources, we have finite money, we don't want to make a mistake. At our company, I think we have a huge technological edge over our competitors. And I'm not saying that just because our CIO is here. But we don't want to lose that. But I see this as, for a lot less money, they could catch up. And so what are we going to do to reinvent ourselves to stay ahead of that curve? We don't want to be pushing the bleeding edge, which we already are a little bit doing. We want to be on that leading edge. And then we add on top of it some of the ethical questions that have come up today, which creates an exciting time to be in executive leadership in your corporations. I mean, we will be defining and addressing some of these issues. And again, it's the same thing. Don't mess up, because that takes away some of our privileges as other sources of saying this is the way you need to behave, corporate world. We take away your right to make those decisions. So, you know, that creates a huge fear. It's like we've got to hit this right on all areas. And so a year from now, we probably talk about this. It'll be interesting to ask the same question. Thank you, Susie.
Important responsibilities for sure. Time for the floor, or how would you like to manage?
Okay, questions. I'll run around. Yeah, I'll run around.
All right, my job's done.
Thank you, Susie. Appreciate it. All right. Questions, please introduce yourself, and then, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to get it right. Emily Barony, I'm an alum, shout out CLU alums. I run a nonprofit consulting company called Visionality here locally, and I'm a brand new baby newbie to AI, so please forgive me when I get this off track. But my understanding is that AI is based on a large language model, which means it's rooted in the past, and our past is rooted in racism and sexism. And I came last year and learned that AI brings in that inherent bias to its work. However, we also learned that it's iterating very quickly. So I'm curious what kind of improvements have been made around inherent bias in AI, and is that less of a concern? Is it even more of a concern? And I hope someone can talk to that.
Let's start on this one here.
Something quickly, actually, about this. So I've been attending a lot of webinars about AI, and the bias thing mentioned a lot during those webinars. I think it all goes back to the data that this model uses. And if you have historical data that has already bias in this data, of course, the AI is going to pull it because the data used in that model has already biased information. So it goes back to the human being. Review the data, make sure the data you incorporate behind the AI, it's good data and free of bias or anything else. Because remember, the AI will pick up the huge data that we're storing behind this AI model. So reviewing data, making sure bias-free or anything else, and this is where you see the improvement. Because you build a model, you have your employees using it, they notice something, so it comes to the human being, you go back and refine this model. So it comes to better data, better information you have available. So.
Yeah, algorithmic bias, I did mention that in the presentation as well, and it is certainly a concern. But the reason I also framed everything from, I call it the concept of humanity, is these models are global, and the models that I spoke of are essentially Western tilted, but they do have data from everywhere in the world, and other countries are developing their own models, China, any of the major powers, Russia, and some do not have any of the regulations or guidance that we have. So there is a particular Western view that we can take on those things, but at the same time, there is a global noosphere of data that is out there. And what the most important thing is, what is the truth? And the truth ultimately cannot be suppressed forever, no matter what models are, because the system always breaks down, because truth is the truth, and truth exists outside of what we think it is. So we're almost delving into the realm of philosophy here, but there are multiple competing models around the world that have little to no Western interface, and the truth of what things are will come out no matter what. No matter what any of our personal, political, or sociological proclivities are, the truth actually will come out. And that's the one thing I think we can take hope in.
Hi. Okay. Can everybody hear me? All right. My name is Jay Bradshaw. I'm also an alum or alumni, and I work for the Walt Disney Company, and we've done a lot of process re-engineering, process improvements, leveraging technology. And first of all, I'm very appreciative of the positive take presented here today. I've taken note of it, trying to build on that. But I also have 30 years, 40 years of experience plus in the workplace. And Andrew, you put up a very good example of efficiency, being able to do more with the same number of workers. Companies always are resource constrained and trying to be more productive. And every new technology from OCR to RPA, and I assume with AI, will always try to edge towards doing more with fewer employees. That's just the nature of work. So when I hear that people will not be affected by AI, I have to push back. So I see the advantages for certain types of jobs, but I also know that there are other jobs that will be impacted. And I'd like to see some feedback on that point.
And maybe I'll start, since I really liked the way you framed that. In the public sector space, we are ultimately in the people business, and because we're providing public service. From our standpoint, last year was the first time budgetarily that I added positions in our organization in 15 years. And so you just look over that same trend line and you think about private sector and waves of hiring, you know, we're pretty solid and consistent. Our workload over that same period of time has gotten outrageously intense in many special areas. But when I go around, I spend time with our field crews who are trying to figure out over 340 miles of streets and roads, how are they going to clean sewer lines in a way that makes logical sense, because they know that we traditionally have backups because people are pouring grease down their drain and they're causing these problems, right? We're now mapping that information, but we're not incorporating that information into a maintenance schedule, right? The same number of people for me in our business are going to be doing that work. I don't foresee a period on the horizon where we're going to be limiting our employees, but we have to reorient those employees, and the types of employees that we hire on that wastewater crew are going to have different skill sets, and they're going to have different needs about how they gather and incorporate data and how they work that into their teams and their crews. And that's my personal, view on it. I recognize my business is very different, and that's I'm not. Our shareholders are the citizens of the community, so it is a different space, and there are different calculations made. And I certainly see in the private sector that there's a lot more sort of intense concern around that.
I think it's true, no matter what, the fear will be there. But again, going back to the reskilling and upskilling, some of those employees, they will be forced, in fact, to learn new skills, because AI is going to create new things, new positions that you need to work on different things about reviewing data, or no matter what, if you have chatbot answering questions for your employees, but at a specific point, a human being needs to be involved. So I would say it's not actually true to say 100% will not be affected, but going back, employees need to be adapted to changes and open-minded, and you need that growth mindset with your employees. Your capability to learn new technology, shift your habits, shift your learning, be able to learn new things and get involved with it. This is the way I approach things, because AI will change the way that we do our work today.
So in the past, we've had these same challenges, but they largely were in areas dealing with physical labor. So we've had tremendous advancements in farming, which created disruption and social, frustration. We have that debate going on now with the longshoremen, saying we don't want technology to displace our jobs. And the argument is, well, then you just won't be competitive with foreign individuals. But never before has technology like this basically been able to challenge human thought, if I can use that phrase, a artificial intelligence. Now, at the moment, there's no IQ there. There's zero intelligence at the moment. It's truly just a tool. So at the moment, we have this feeling, and it's true that just like those other technologies, work will be different for white-collar workers, and jobs will be displaced just like they have in our factories. They will have challenges, and there's going to be need for re-education and that type of thing. The fear is, what if it becomes truly intelligent? And Aaron and I have had this discussion. I said, ChatGPT can, say, well, we're an institution that needs to keep this safe. And I said, not if China is doing the same technology. We aren't stopping them. So it's not a bottle that you can just control. You can't say, we're the ethical ones, we'll control it. You're addressing some things that remain to be seen. I think if it's, the fear is that it's so fast. If it's slow, we can digest it. If it's really fast, it becomes a shock that's hard to displace. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be moving that fast, but that could change. Yeah, it's a good question.
We have quite a few questions and not too much time, so let's do short questions, short answers, and then we can pitch up
Good morning. My name is John Garcia. I'm a faculty member here at CLU, and I teach finance and machine learning related courses. And my question is, one of the things that Aaron pointed out is that there's been a significant boost in productivity for workers who are using it. And that study from Boston Consulting was 25% improvement as far as the speed. There's been studies that go up to like 50%. So it's a significant increase in productivity. At the same time, when you look at organizations and what they're saying, they're seeing no gains yet from this. And so you don't have to have a PhD in finance to figure out here that really all the benefits are really going towards the individual, right, where they're reaping the benefits and the organization's not as much. And arguably, you could say part of that is because of fear, right? So part of it is fear of misuse, because like, I don't know, even though there's policies themselves are oftentimes ambiguous or very broad. And as was pointed out earlier, sometimes they want to be the hero and be, okay, I'm a super performer now. Or perhaps there's always the idea that, well, if I just improve, my reward for more improvement is more work, which why would I want to do that, right? So my question is, how, from an HR perspective, some specific ideas on how could you reduce fear of the individuals so that companies themselves can actually monetize the benefits and shift some of that benefit from the individual to the company? And then also, what kind of reward systems can you think of that could be put in place to enable that to happen so that that does occur, and especially for remote workers who may automate their entire jobs, and instead of spending 8 hours on work, you can just say, okay, well, I could just do my work, get it done in 30 minutes, which is very plausible with agents, that you could do that in a very quick manner. So that's my question.
If only two people could answer quickly, please. Christine. Him next.
We're in kind of the celebratory phase of AI. So yes, if someone's using it to be more productive and they actually work fewer hours, it's okay at the moment. We aren't looking to exploit that at our company. I do also think that it's not exactly accurate to say that we're not seeing the benefits, because we are seeing an increase in output and an increase in quality. But where we're looking for the real gains, and this gets a little bit on track to what you were trying to say, and I'm going to try and keep this short, Vlad, is there's some big opportunities for huge productivity gains, which aren't just how to write a better letter. It's really to exploit AI so that it automates things that were somewhat dry but did require a high level of human intelligence, and to get that work done a lot faster. And that's why I say it's okay to be playing in these other areas, playing and experimenting. But our first AI policy that came out, which was about 2 years ago, an engineer did a validation. The supervisor looked at it and said, "Did you use ChatGPT?" He's like, "Yes, isn't it great?" It was order of magnitude higher quality than it ever done before. And the first policy drafted by our IT security team said, you cannot use ChatGPT or any of these things. Zero, not at all. And I'm like, then how are we possibly going to stay up to date? So anyway, where I go is we're in this sweet phase where it's if you're being safe and smart and protecting data, yep, there's a fair amount of leeway. But the strategy that was mentioned is showing where there's going to be these huge boosts in productivity, so an increase in output. So, it doesn't mean we're going to cut back. It just means that we get to do a lot more. So, sorry, Vlad, still too long.
It's good.
All right. You guys can hear me, right? I'm Carter. I'm a student here in the master's program. I just wanted to ask kind of a question on why you wouldn't leverage AI to kind of replace the workforce when AI and automation is a lot better basically than most of the workforce. I'm just kind of wondering, because that would cut cost and AI is just a fixed cost. And then you have some variable costs moving forward, maybe with maintenance and IT, but so I understand certain job positions like IT and all that, but like the labor force especially, we can see that AI is already replacing it, and you know, people in there are kind of becoming worthless compared to AI. So I'm just wondering why you wouldn't use AI to replace and cut costs.
That's a hugely provocative question.
Yes.
And you can see that this gentleman hasn't taken my class yet, right? Those of you who have, you know what I'm talking about. Please.
So this is an important philosophical question that's going on, but what I'll try to say to condense that as much as I can. One of the things that I have passion for, particularly as a business leader, is that's absolutely a real possibility. And you'll see that's why in my presentation I opened it up and I talked about the indelible and transcendent things that make us human, and moving from a just purely transactional model of what we do, the meaning of our work and life itself is simply an output of regurgitation of products and facts. So the transformation that's going to happen, so I don't want to like go way out in the clouds here, but there's going to be a fundamental re-examination of what that means. In the near term, yes, there will be some displacements. Will some of that be painful? Yes. I don't know what ultimately that will mean, but I do know that there will be big ethical and philosophical questions that we will all be asking as a society and a civilization, not only in the United States, not only in the West, but all throughout the world, that will have long-ranging impacts that will affect the future of humanity.
I'm going to give just a real quick response from an economic perspective. Our company is at a state like here, and we're trying to get to a future state that's something much greater. And we'd like to do it without dramatically increasing headcount, but we can't do it if we decrease headcount. So we're talking about incorporating technology that enables us to change our future state, and we will reap huge economic benefits, and we're going to need people for it. But so reduction isn't in our future. We just want to repurpose them. I could go on, but I'm going to keep it short for Vlad. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Christy Mango. I'm a recent EMBA graduate with two of my fellow classmates. I think HBR coined this, and I really like to think of AI in this terms instead of artificial intelligence. Switch the two letters to IA, intelligence augmentation. So I see it as a helper very much. And so with that, I want to come clean. I use ChatGPT to review and revise almost all of my emails to see if there's anything I could say better or anything I'm missing. I am currently the CEO and controller of the Santa Barbara Fish Market. We have 2 retail stores, a restaurant, and we sell local fish to a lot of the restaurants in Santa Barbara and other wholesalers. I'll stop there. So with that said, when I see other people's emails come in, I could pretty easily spot if it's been ran through ChatGPT. And immediately I get turned off. When I do use ChatGPT, I will go in, and if I do copy and paste, I will go in and make my own edits to add that human element, because I think that is very important. And I'm also seeing maybe within myself, and my question is this, I'm seeing a polarization happen here in this realm. And maybe it could be, coined creativity, but I'm seeing people who don't use ChatGPT, I'm actually appreciating their creative aspect even more now, because it is not that bot, it is not that programming, it is not that perfect language. And I was wondering what your thoughts are about that.
I think it's a great point, and I see it as well. One of the biggest areas of integration, especially in public sector, that I've seen is a lot of people struggle with the annual employee performance appraisal process. And you've seen a lot of folks, and I would imagine a lot of folks in here are probably leverage the tool for your writing your performance reviews. And we have certainly seen, because those go through multiple layers of review, we've seen some folks that do not take that task of actually, stepping back and, okay, let me see how this flows, and we'll send those reviews back for modification, and because it reads really hollow, and it doesn't really move the conversation with employees about improving their performance overall. So using the cold utilization of that without incorporating the human into it certainly is impactful.
I think it's going back to making that balance, right? You have AI helping you with baseline or something, but don't trust it. A human, if you're reformatting something or rewriting, have AI rewrite your email, it could add something that you're not aware of. And again, that person receiving that email could be just rejecting it because of the way it was written. So human being involvement and review what AI generated for you, it's very important. For me, I think it's a great tool to use it for some help, speed up the process. If you need something very quick, at least you have the baseline and you continue building upon this, what AI generate for you. But no matter what, human interaction, review by a human being, it's very important.
Last question, please.
Hello, I'm Tani Cracciola. I'm from the Getty Imaging, former Walt Disney Company admin. And we're on the creative side, and we're looking at making sure that our team is getting compensated for the work that they do or the work that is being generated by AI. But I have to ask this question, as all of us with cell phones, if you remember the time where you used to remember everybody's phone number, you lose your phone, you now don't remember your husband, whoever number, right? Your best friend, your husband, oh my God, I don't remember my child's number. So I have to ask about AI when it becomes co-pilot, becomes codependence. How do we as executives and people in the field make sure that we don't use this technology to replace fully who we are, as we were saying, as human beings and creatives, but also this codependence when we lose, let's say, all the systems shut down. Can we do our jobs? Can your team do their job as well as what you've put forward as your expectations? And we have to make sure as educators that we're building children, our young elementary school kids who are using this right now, that they actually have the skill sets that we spoke of. But how do we as companies make sure that we don't fall apart when the systems go down?
It's something we think about all the time because we're one major earthquake away from not having any access to those cell phones, and our responsibility as frontline employees will be to help society get back after those moments. And so there's a common theme that we talk about within our organization about readiness to that effect, and I think it's relational, and encouraging the fact that we're all here today and having these sort of conversations as business leaders are going to be increasingly important, that we don't step back away from these kind of interactions and recognize that we can't be wholly reliant on just the technological aspect.
It's not a fair comparison, but some of you may remember when calculators first came out and they weren't allowed in school. And there was a lot of debate as to, well, is it fair to not let them use this during a test when we're not testing their math skills, we're trying to test their skills in physics or something. So AI remains to be seen, but it's another tool that if we are so reliant on it that we cannot work independently, just as we still teach math in school and we expect people to be able to work without a calculator, we want them to have those math skills. If you don't have them, it will impact you at work. If you cannot work independent of AI, if you're so dependent, it will affect you at work. So the balance remains to be seen. I know it's overly simplistic, but the calculator approach will happen. We'll start to use this. They'll generate tools where it's you don't have to look at your phone. It's on your Google glasses and things like that, and we'll figure that out. And of course, I don't think Aaron's gonna take the time, but this is the challenge he has with some of the software developers. They are so dependent that they can't work without their AI tool, and he's terminating them. So.
Ooh, the Terminator. No, but and I don't want that to be in conflict with compassion. I'll just sort of wrap up with that. Is that no, actually, that was really hard, and it is something when we're talking about upskilling and we're talking about how we bring people forward. This is really evolving, because there's like this fine line of successfully using these tools versus dependence. And I don't think there's a clear answer just yet. I think it's something that we have to feel out, and we are definitely learning on the job with that. And it is a concern that's come up in our own company and in our own teams, and I'm sure with many. So I think it's an important question that probably really should be revisited continuously.
Thank you, and thanks to our panel. Please give a round of applause. Please stay seated for now. Let me just say a few closing words, or words in closing, whatever. We came to the conclusion of our forum. I truly hope that you're leaving with some new knowledge, useful insights and tips, and in general with some excitement about the topic of talent management and AI, the role of AI in managing talent. And really, no matter what industry you come from, no matter what country you're from, people management is the most important aspect of your organization. As both research and practice show, tremendous initiatives to attract, recruit, deploy, engage, motivate, develop, and retain your key talent will continue to be a top priority for organization leaders across the globe. And therefore, we will continue also our efforts aimed at bringing this cutting-edge knowledge from academics and practitioners alike for years to come. And the School of Management at Cal Lutheran is always at your disposal. And if you need someone to talk to your employees or your leadership team on how to engage, attract, develop, and retain talent, how to build and maintain trust in your organization, talk to me. I do it all the time for organizations locally and around the world. And I would like to thank all of you for your attendance, of course, and participation. Specifically, I would like to thank our sponsors, Meisner Corporation, PennyMac, Sage Publication, and the City of Thousand Oaks. Our keynote speaker, Aaron Anderson. And our panelists and moderators, Shafia Hayek, Chris Meisner, Drew Powers, and Susie Landin. I also would like to thank the members of the organizing committee for this year's event and our School of Management staff, Tiki Van Hist, I don't know where Tiki is, Pia Valtiera, she's probably outside, Hannah Petter. Oh, there's Hannah. Especially, I would like to thank Rosie Baker, without whom this whole thing would not have been possible. Rosie. Please, please, please do not forget, before you go out and get something to eat, please do not forget to fill out your survey. It'll take you probably 5 minutes. It's very user-friendly and easy to do. I look forward to hearing from all of you soon. You will hear from us before too long as well. I'll be contacting all of you, and if you wish, I can send you a copy of my presentation and Aaron's presentation. And then we'll keep in touch, as always, throughout the year. So thank you. Enjoy your lunch, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.